we're talking about how anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, and other forms of racism are actually embedded in our government and in all of the institutions that our Canadian government allows to exist.
Political leaders across Canada have rushed to condemn systemic racism in the aftermath of protests condemning the way Canada governs and polices marginalized populations. But activists warn that without understanding what systemic racism is, the people at the very heads of those systems are just talking the talk without walking the walk.
We don't have a Canada without the Indian Act. We don't have a Canada without residential schools or the reservation system. We don't have a Canada without slavery and segregation and all of the things that those produced.
Akwasi Owusu-Bempah says systemic or structural racism is baked into Canada's history. Systems developed during the colonial era colored who had access to education, who could gain wealth, and who could hold political power. Those systems continue to have lasting impacts with results that are still felt today.
Things like school disciplinary practices, the ideas and beliefs that were propagated and shared during those times influence how teachers perceive children's behavior. They influence how employers perceive the potential intelligence or work ethic of job applicants. And they influence how, organizations that I study, like the police, decide who they're going to stop and search.
Today, Black women are one of the fastest growing Canadian prison populations, despite making up a fraction of the population. And the Conference Board of Canada reports Black Canadians earn only 80 cents for every dollar white Canadians earn. Author and activist Desmond Cole says while the Prime Minister has talked a lot about systemic racism, his government has sued to stop a Human Rights Tribunal ruling on funding for Indigenous children in care.
The Human Rights Tribunal has said exactly what I just said. This is racist. It's not fair to give First Nations kids on reserves less money, and the government has to immediately equalize the funding. What has Justin Trudeau been doing instead? He has been fighting First Nations people in court so that he doesn't have to equalize the funding.
Now, Cole was able to provide a long list of examples of Canada failing to address systemic racism or indeed benefiting from it, most recently failing to obtain the consent of the Wet'suwet'en people before attempting to build the Coastal GasLink pipeline through unceded territory. In Ottawa, Xiaoli Li, City News.